there's a question of like, if you ask it a really delicate question, sometimes it just punts. It says, I'm not going to, it doesn't say I'm not going to go there, but if you were to say to talk to me like a hipster, it would say I'm not going to go there. So some questions it just won't go into. But if you ask it like someone at a thing I was at the other day said, I typed in there, give me some advantages of fossil fuels. And it came back and said, there are no advantages to fossil fuels. And he was upset about this because he said, this is this liberal thing and it's taking a position. And so someone then just typed in, what are the advantages and disadvantages of fossil fuels? And it gave, a bunch of reasons. Like it's very efficient as a store of energy, right? It's easily, stored, and it's easily shipped, right? And then it had negative implications of fossil fuels as well. And if you pushed it more, it talked about how, even under the most optimistic plans for, reducing carbon output, there's going to be a transition where fossil fuels will probably remain some part of our energy package. And, so it took something, and again, this is this thing about polarization. You have to pull that thing to get it to not be saying somewhat reasonable, positions on it. I think there are a set of questions that for whatever, I don't know what their criteria were, that they've just decided they're not, it's not going to respond to, right? Like if you were to ask, how do I engage in some sort of illegal activity or something, right? It's like, what's the best way to cheat on my taxes? I'm guessing it probably haven't tried it, but I'm guessing it doesn't give an answer there. But this is I think a really deep question. This is a question where I have a lot of concerns, but one concern I have is that this is in the hands of a private company that supposedly is like a fixed profit. So they're basically saying we're only going to make so much money, but they haven't told us how much that's going to be. Whereas if this were in the hands of, let's say, a consortium of universities, one would imagine that you would have a large committee of people in a very public way kind of deciding what gets answered, what doesn't get answered. We'd have some understanding collectively. In the hands of a private group that may be opaque what their policies are, that's maybe harder to tell. I know they have ethicists, that they've hired to help them figure out what questions get asked, which questions answered, which questions don't. But I think this is going to be something that's really going to be, really hard to sort out. But that like Facebook and Twitter and those places aren't responsible for misinformation, right? They can't be sued because they're a platform, they're not a news source. The question is, how will this be treated by the government, by the legal system, if it gives bad advice, right? So if it gives someone advice to do something, even though it's not giving it advice, if you ask it a question, there will be issues of like, is there some sort of legal responsibility there? And to the extent there is, you're going to see them then tighten up the set of questions. But I think personally it'd be a mistake to limit it to questions, to have this software, these sort of softwares are only used for like chemistry and physics and coding, right, or something, right? I think we've got to monitor it in a way. And we've got to monitor it in a lot of ways, but I think we've got to monitor it and think about how people are using it and make sure we've got a lot of guardrails in place. But right now, I think if anything, they've got pretty narrow guardrails. Not that I've tried, but from people I've talked to, they've said if you type in a bunch of stuff, you just get, sorry, I'm not going to answer that.